The beauty of Post-it notes is you can put those up, and hopefully they do actually remind you to start the recording on these webinars. So again, the purpose of these webinars that we do each month is to recap the tip of the week emails that we send to all of our administrators and owners of TimeSolv accounts once a week. Generally, it's on Mondays. Those of you that look for those emails might have noticed it didn't come until late last week. I was out early last week actually and didn't get a chance to put that out. So the idea is that we will do a recap here on this Wednesday webinar of all the various tips of the week that we did for the previous month, so the ones that we did in September. I know we have quite a few people joining us today that are currently on a free trial. They haven't committed fully to TimeSolv, so I hope that you get some more information about our system and how it can be used to hopefully make your firm more efficient, more profitable. If you haven't gone through a full initial training with one of your account managers, I highly encourage you to do that. They'll walk you through all the important things you need to know about TimeSolv and get you up and running faster and easier than perhaps if you tried to kind of weed through it on your own. So with that being said, let's cover a few kind of housekeeping items. If you want to mark your calendar now, because you know you just can't, you live without Wednesday webinars, the next one that we'll do is going to be Wednesday, November 1st. So you can put that on your calendar, same time, 1 o'clock Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I do have everyone on mute just to make it easier for the flow of this. And I will be taking some questions near the end. Up near the top of your screen, whether you're using the web browser to join us here, you should notice a little kind of thought bubble icon, a dialogue bubble, if you will. If you click on that, that's the chat area of this software, join.me, in which you can ask a question. So you can start typing in there some questions. I'll generally reserve that for the end, only because you may have a question that you're furiously writing on something that I'm covering, and it turns out that I might cover or answer that question before you even get finished. So I'll just ask for you to perhaps wait until near the end. I anticipate that this should last about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Depends on how many questions we have at the end. And then again, there's a recording of this that I will send out via email probably tomorrow at some point after I upload it to YouTube, and I like to put a nice little fancy graphics on the beginning and end of it so it looks very professional. So, all right, with that being said, let's get into what our topics are going to be for today's Wednesday webinar. So we have 4 topics that we're going to cover today, and I think I put them in the email soliciting registrations on Monday. The first is going to be creating global rates. That's the term we use here at TimeSolv, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, about why you would need to have a global rate, how do you apply it to your clients and or their matters. So that's the first topic that we'll talk about. Then for those of you that have been using TimeSolv for a long time, you may already be well aware of our TimeSync tool. For those that aren't, this is what I think is one of the coolest features that we have here. It is a desktop widget, as you'll see, that allows you to track time and expenses even if you're offline or if you don't have your web browser open. So you don't have to be logged into TimeSolv through like your Chrome or Firefox or Internet Explorer, whatever you use to actually track time and expenses. And I'll show you how that happens if you aren't using that tool already. And then a question that we often get are, what are the differences in the different types of contacts that you can manage in TimeSolv? And probably more importantly, the question comes up like, how the heck do I get this one particular contact to be the contact that's on my invoices that I'm sending out to my clients? Because it can get somewhat confusing a little bit. And so we'll cover about creating new contacts or taking existing contacts you have, associating them with either the client or the matter or both, and why there's some differences there between having your contacts associated with clients and not matters or vice versa. So that's topic number 3. And then our last topic is something that is relatively new here at TimeSolv, document automation. Many law firms, or not even just law firms, but many businesses send out kind of routine correspondence to their customers, their clients, whatever you want to call them, and that involves oftentimes doing a lot of cutting and pasting of information into like a Word document template you might have, you know, changing the date, changing a name, an address, whatever it might be. Well, that can be handled a lot easier in TimeSolv with this document automation feature that we created back early in the, I guess, early summer, late spring. I think it was in May is when we first released this. The reason why we want to bring it up again, I did a whole separate webinar earlier this year on document automation, but the reason why I wanted to kind of touch on it again is because it's a feature that you're not going to just stumble upon in TimeSolv. It is kind of, you have to go to some particular areas to set up the templates and the automation that you want to have happen. So I'll walk you through that today. So that is going to be what we'll cover in today's webinar. So let's get right at it. Tip number one, creating global rates. This often comes in the form of the question to our support staff, how do I create a second billing rate is what it's oftentimes called. And depending on the system you may have used previously, there can be all sorts of various terms. Keep in mind that global rates is just one of 6 different rate options you have in TimeSolv to apply to a client and or matter. Most of the time, most of you are going to use your default timekeeper rates. When you set up all the professionals that are tracking time in TimeSolv, you have a default rate you have to apply when you set them up. And I'm sure for 85–90% of all the work that you do, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change that default rate. But there are some instances with your business where you may want to have a second billing rate. Maybe first-time clients you give discounts to. Maybe if you're working with a nonprofit, you want to apply a nonprofit rate. Maybe there's one particular client, they're a really big client, you know you're going to be working with them for years, so you've negotiated a discount rate for just that one particular client. The best thing to do to make sure that every matter that you run for that client uses that particular rate is to create a global rate. Okay, we just covered the common reasons why you might need a different rate than what is set at the default. And then we're also going to go and I'll show you where you actually go within TimeSolv to set up that global rate. So let's get into TimeSolv itself. Quick reminder as we're on the login screen here, I know a lot of us blow past this probably pretty fast when you log into your account every day or whenever you're logging in, but keep in mind that we're always looking for referrals, those who you think might also benefit from using TimeSolv. And if they become a paying customer, you can get a $100 Amazon gift card. So nothing to sneeze at as we're getting into closer to the holiday season. So just a quick reminder, when you come to the login screen, if you just click on that orange button, that'll take you to the page where you can make a referral. And if they go paid, we would pay you $100. The only caveat really is that they would, we don't pay until they've been a paying customer for at least 2 months minimum. So anyway. Okay, so I'm going to log in here to TimeSolv, and let's talk about where we want to create these global rates that you may want to apply to a particular client or a specific matter within that client. And when you land here on the time entry screen after logging in, you'll want to head to Time and Settings. And again, only administrators are going to see the settings area. So if you don't see that, you perhaps aren't set as an administrator of your TimeSolv account, and you would need to talk to whoever is so you could get access to that as well. When you get into the settings, you'll notice there is a tab over here called, surprisingly enough, Global Rates. So you click on that tab, and this is where you could actually create your new global rate. And you can see I already have a couple of built in. I mentioned before a 20% nonprofit rate. Perhaps you have some matters that you started in 2016 and you promised you lock in rates for the year that you start work you do for a particular client. So you want to always make sure they're getting the 2016 rates or whatever it might be. Maybe there's a 5% adjustment rate. And here's, Best Buy, headquartered here in Minneapolis where I'm at. I use them as an example. If I have a lot of work I'm going to be doing with them and I've negotiated that really, good deal, this is where I would set up that global rate. So it becomes quite simple. When you want to create a new global rate, just head over here to the right-hand side where it says New Global Rate. Click on it. You'll want to name it. So we'll call this we'll get rid of my password manager there. We'll call this Webinar Rate. You can make sure to check whether it's going to be active, available for others to apply or not, and then do a short description. And there it is. Now what do you do? To actually assign the rate you want for all your timekeepers, you go over here to edit rates. And all of your timekeepers in your system who are active will be listed here. And it'll show their default rate, and you'll have the opportunity to put in the new rate that you want for this particular global rate. Let's look at one that we've already, I haven't created that one yet. Our 5% adjustment rate. You know, I put in the new rate for every professional here. Okay, so it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Here's something that also is important to understand. You don't have to change the rate for every single one of the timekeepers in this global rate. If you know that, you know, Tom Rafferty here is somebody who never changes their rate no matter what because of the work they do, I don't know, whatever it might be, you could change the rates for everybody here, 175, you know, 225, let's say 200, and fill in nothing for Tom Rafferty. Then in that case, if Tom Rafferty ever did any work for a matter or client that you had applied the global rate to, it would just go to his default rate. Okay, so you don't have to change every single timekeeper. You can just change for bigger firms. If you know there's only going to be 3 or 4 of your 15 attorneys working on a particular global rate, or apply a particular global rate, you only enter the rate for them, leave all the others blank, and you'll be fine. If you do decide to create a client-specific rate, that's probably a case where that would apply. You know there's only going to be 2 attorneys ever working on the matters for Best Buy. Everyone else don't need to worry about. So just change their rate right here, and don't worry about everybody else. Okay. Now the other place where you can adjust your global rate is under your professionals and their settings. So if you head over to Account and Professionals, and you click on any one professional here that you have listed, you'll notice over here you'll have a button that shows your default rate, and you can click on it to adjust global rates and matter rates for that matter, but we're focused on global rates today. So you just click on global rates, and it's going to show you the list of all of the global rates that you have created in the system, and what this particular timekeeper, Tony Hill, what his rates are for those global rates you've created, and you can adjust them here if you want to do that. It's a place where if there, one particular timekeeper you need to make all adjustments for, just come and do it here for the global rate. You don't have to click into every single global rate you may have created. That can get a bit messy. This is a good place to do it if you have a new timekeeper that's coming on board, somebody you've just made active, it's a new attorney, whoever it might be. They need to have a global rate assigned to them. This is the place where you'd want to do that. You've set them all up, you've had their default rate, and then you can go ahead and create their global rates as well. So that's how you set up the global rates. Now let's look at how you actually apply those. So you want to go under your clients and matters, and if you click on any one of your matters right here, and this is my entire list. And this, for those of you that have created clients and matters, you kind of probably know this stuff, but in case you've never used global rates before, on the first tab of your client, down near the bottom here in the left-hand column, you'll see rate by. And by default, it'll always be your timekeeper default. But this is where you can choose the 6 different rate options that we make available in TimeSolv. And you would want to go down here to global rate. And when you do that, you'll notice it created a new row in which you can then choose the global rate that you want to apply. And then you would just hit save. Now you may ask the question, okay, this task then global rate, well, what does that mean? You can assign a particular rate for tasks that you create for time entries. Like, it could be that you use the ABA task codes, it could be unique ones that you use for your line of business. Whenever you go to court, let's say, you always have a different rate, or maybe you have a different research rate. And so that is a unique rate for just that particular task that a timekeeper might do. So in this case, if you do have a very specific task rate that you want to make sure it gets used every time, but then you want it to default back to this global rate, you would choose task, then global rate. So that means for any other task that your people are doing time entries for this particular client would be the global rate, except if they choose the task that has a special rate to it. And by choosing task rate, let's go ahead and save this. That means like if you're here and you have a task code, these are the task codes. You can actually assign a specific rate for every single one of these task codes. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when you have task then global rate. Again, probably not applicable to a lot of people, but there are some firms who have questions about this, and we want to make sure you have that flexibility. So you can do this at the matter level, okay? And you hit, we're going to do the 20% nonprofit rate, let's say. Now, any new matter that you create will automatically have this global rate applied to it. So if I go into my matters here and I create a new matter, and I'm going to call it new matter, let's just call it 2 because I already have 1. When I go to that new matter, it automatically has that global rate, okay? It's important to note that if you have, for whatever reason, an existing matter that had the timekeeper default, like right here, even though you've changed it at the client level, it doesn't retroactively go back to already existing matters and update them to whatever you changed it at the client level, okay? It's not retroactive. You'd have to go back in there and you do it manually. Okay, so that's an important thing to remember. If you decide, hey, I want to change the, this one particular client, we've already done 50 matters for them, and I want to change to a different global rate or from timekeeper default to one we just created. You hit save like this, it's not going to back up those other 50 matters that you already exist and change it. You'd have to do those one by one. Moving forward, any new matter in the future will have those rates, whatever you set here at the client level. Okay, so an important distinction. And again, you probably saw you can also change your matter rate at the or change the rates at your matter level as well. By default, it's timekeeper, and you can do all the things you need to do here. You can create a specific matter rate if you'd like. The reason why we talk about that example, I mean, you might have 50 matters for one particular client. It's easier on the front end to set it up with the global rate you're going to charge them forevermore, and not have to, like, every time you create a new matter, come down here and go to and create a matter rate for them. Matter rate is really just a very unique, usually one-off sort of thing that you may want to apply. So it just makes things a little bit faster and easier. Okay, so important to note, again, it's not retroactive to existing matters if you change it at the client level. Okay, so I think that's the biggest takeaway. So that's kind of a brief overview of how you create global rates. And when you do assign the global rate and people do time entries, that global rate will come up in the time entry screen. So when you apply the matter specifically, new client, whatever, I think it was new matter, client 2, matter 2, now it says the rate's 180. Not the 250. See, it changed from 250 to 180 because it's applying that global rate that we had created. Okay. All right. So let's head back to tip number 2 here. Okay, we covered how to apply it to clients and matters and about the fact that it's not retroactive. Okay, using the TimeSync tool as we're moving along here. Like I said, I think this is perhaps the best feature that TimeSolv has. Well, one of the best. I guess that's saying a lot, but I think it's a really cool feature that perhaps not a lot of other, especially SaaS-based software. By SaaS, I mean web-based software has to offer. So I'll show you about where you actually download it in TimeSolv and install it, because it is a piece of software, basically a light piece of software that you put that gets installed on your computer, and then talk about how you log in the first time with your same TimeSolv credentials you have when you log into the web browser. And then I'll talk about it's important to make sure that you sync the TimeSync tool periodically so that any new matters and clients that you've created since the last time you synced will appear. So I'll explain what that means here in just a second. So first things first, where do you actually access and get the TimeSync tool? And where you want to go is under Account to your professionals. And you as the administrator, you can see all professionals. If it's just a regular timekeeper, doesn't have a lot of, he won't be able or she won't be able to see the list of all the timekeepers, but they'll see themselves. So you would just click on your own name here if you're the one who's going to be using TimeSync. And one of the tabs across here says TimeSync. And what's going to actually, my screen looks a little different because I've already downloaded it previously, but essentially you're installing two pieces of software. One is this Adobe Air Runtime. That's kind of what the TimeSync tool platform it runs on. So you need to install that first. So you want to just click on it. It's going to just do a short little download. As you can see, it's downloading here. It's only, what, 11 megabytes. So it's not a big, heavy thing. It's not going to take a long time to download. Once you download it, you double click it, you open it, you follow the instructions. Hopefully, you may have, depending on the firewalls that are set up, there could be potentially some things to help get it installed. You may have to talk to an IT person, or you could call us at TimeSolv and we can walk through that as well. So once you have the Adobe Air Runtime installed, then you'll actually download the TimeSolv TimeSync tool. And again, same thing. You click on it, it'll download. I think it's like, I did it, it's been a while, but yeah, it's like 2 megabytes. So it doesn't take very long to download these two pieces of software. Once you install TimeSync, it'll open automatically for you. And what you'll end up seeing is, let me get out of this so I can see it. Here it is on my desktop. Now I know, and I have talked to our developers, this looks, the skin of this looks rather, let's be honest, antiquated. And as a marketing guy, I wished it looked better. But the functionality of it is great. So we'll focus on that. What you're seeing here is basically this little widget that can sit on your desktop, and you can even choose to have it sit on top of anything else that you might have open. So if you need to, work on a spreadsheet or do something else, you're not in your web browser with TimeSolv open, actually tracking time, you can use this widget. So when you first come in here, I'm going to click on entries here and go up to settings. Okay, and this is what you'll get when you first open up TimeSync. You'll log in with your TimeSolv credentials, and then it'll ask if it wants you to show the start and stop of time, and I have it as no right now. And then always on top means you always want it on top of other programs, okay? So when you land here, this basically works just like the time entry screen you see in TimeSolv. So you can double click and just, again, you can even start typing just like you would in TimeSolv to find, oh, you know what, I haven't synced, so I don't have the new client there. So let's just go down to, you'll notice I had a new client over in, this is a good example of what we need to do, or over in my clients and matters. Let me go over here briefly and show you. I have a new client and then new matter, and you saw me create that and work in that, but it didn't show up in my TimeSync tool. Well, why is that? Well, I haven't synced in a while. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit backwards here, but when you first log in, it will sync all of your clients and matters into TimeSync. It'll just churn, and all of these will be created on the TimeSync tool. Thereafter, whenever you have a new client or matter you might create in TimeSolv, you'll want to make sure the next time you open up TimeSync that you do a sync so that it will appear. And where you do that here is under entries. And I'm going to go ahead and hit sync. And it's doing our old-fashioned kind of syncing, spinning here. Now it's been all synced up. Now if I go under time and matter here, or time, click on the client and matter. If I hit new, there's my new client, my new matter. They've been synced over. So you choose your client and matter just like you do in your time entry screen. Pick a task code if you want, just like you do in the time entry screen, a subtask code if you need to. You can choose whether it's billable, non-billable. You can even do no charge if you start typing no charge. Then you can create the abbreviations just like in your time entry screen. So you could use this just like you do any other your regular time entry, and then you just can click start here and start the timer. It's important to know too as well that I want to know, I'm not going to say change. You get a phone call, let's say, and you need to start tracking time because you're billing them for this phone call. Instead of having to quick log into the browser and open up and try to start a timer, create it, choose a client and matter and so on. Open up the TimeSync tool real quick and just start the timer. Boom, just like that. You don't have to have the client and matter all selected right when you start the timer. So again, a fast way to start tracking time if you need to do it immediately. Open up the TimeSync widget, boom, hit the timer there start and start timing. And then you can come in here and, you know, enter your client at Matter when you get a chance, make the description, whatever it might be, okay? And then you can stop the timer, and then you can save it. Now, you've saved it, but it's still not over here in TimeSolv. It's important to note. This is where you can use this tool when you are offline. If you're not hooked up to the internet, which it seems like we always are wherever we happen to be, but good example, you're on a flight and you didn't get the Delta flight, you know, go in flight, whatever, internet, but you still need to do some work, and it's billable time. Open up the TimeSync tool, start tracking your time, okay? All of your entries will start stacking up over here under entries. Here's the one I just created, okay? They'll start just stacking up here. They're not over here in TimeSolv yet. If I go over here into time entry, you know, I have an entry I did earlier today, but not this entry I'm just doing right now in TimeSync, okay? So you'll start stacking up all of your time and expense entries. Same thing. Say, you know, because I'm on that flight for my new client in Matter, the expense is going to be, you know, word processing I'm going to pay for later, whatever, and I'm going to charge them, you know, $50 for that, whatever it might be, and then I hit save. If you need to enter old time, I shouldn't say old time. If you need to make an entry from a day that's not today, you can always click here and choose. There's your calendar, and you can choose the date that you want to make the entry for. Okay, so just be aware of that as well. That it doesn't have to necessarily be real time. If you are on that flight and you remember that you have billable time from 3 days ago, you can just come in here and choose that date, and it'll create a time entry for that date. So once we have all of our, you know, our expenses, our time entries, and so on, and we're back online, flight's landed, we're at our hotel, we're hooked into their Wi-Fi or whatever. Now you come over here to these entries, review all of them, delete them if you need to, you can edit them if you need to, whatever you might need to do to them, then you hit sync. Now it's moving these time entries from your computer basically to our actual database. And now if I hit refresh, there is that time entry that I just did. If I go over here to my expense entries, it's going to show me that expense entry that I created as well. So you can see how fast it moves into TimeSolv itself. Great tool to use to make sure that you're really tracking all of your billable time. To quickly start tracking time, you open it up quick, you click the play button here, if you will, and it starts tracking time. So an underutilized tool, I think, that a lot of people don't realize that we have. You don't have to have that browser window open. You don't have to click the Matter and the client, you know, before starting to track time. So it's kind of a nice feature, I think, that make sure you use it to make sure you're tracking all the billable time you could possibly track. Excuse me. Make sure you're tracking all the billable time possible. How's that? So that's the TimeSync tool. And again, you can just keep it up. You could make sure that if you go under entries here again to settings, you could have it always on top of whatever it is you're working on. So you can see now, I'm going to click back onto the web browser. I'm in the web browser now. I'm doing my thing, but it's still on top. If I decide to, you know, work on an Excel file, whatever it might be, this is always going to be on top, so I can always see it. It's nice for those that have, you know, all sorts of, or bigger screen, I should say, because then you could just kind of have it off to the side of my screen here. You're opening up whatever it might be, you know, an Excel file, and it's going to be there. Even if you expand it out, you can see it's still sitting on top. If you don't like that, if it's intrusive, you know, then don't worry about it, okay? So I'm going to go into always on top. No, I personally like a clean kind of visual for me, so I would keep it down underneath things, but just know that it's there, okay? All right, so let's go on to our next tip. And I clearly got off here, so boom, boom, boom. Okay, different types of contacts. So now we're going to talk about the different types of contacts that you can create in TimeSolv. There's really 4. And how to create a new contact for a client in Meta. It seems pretty basic, I know, but it does need to be covered because we do get some support calls on making sure Mostly it's about how to get the right contact they want onto an invoice. So like I said, we have 4 main types of contacts that we'll talk about. There's a main contact, an optional invoice contact, related party, and then other. The 2 top ones, main and optional invoice, are the ones you really need to be concerned about when it comes to what contact is going to appear on an invoice. And then we'll talk about how to assign existing contacts to a new client or a new matter. And that does come up, and we have found that you don't need to recreate a contact over and over again when assigning it to a particular matter or a client. And some people, I know this question has come up, came up to one of our support people maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. They were creating, it was the same person, they were creating this person as a new contact every single time because they didn't realize you could assign an existing contact to a new matter or a new client, okay? And then more importantly, the question of who ends up on the darn invoice, and we'll cover that, okay? So let's head back over into TimeSolv. So when you want to create a new contact, you have this brand new client and they have a brand spanking new matter. If you know that you have the same contact person for every matter that you're going to handle for them, then I would create a contact at the client level. If you know that it's a big client and maybe every matter that you handle for them might have a different person, that's fine. You can create a contact assign it at the client level and a different one at the matter level. Okay, and we'll show you how to do that. So first, let's go to the client. You have a new client. You just did your intake work on them, and you want to make this the main contact for this client. So you can just go over here to new contact. When you click on that, you have a couple of options here. The contact type, this is one of you get the choice of main, optional invoice, related party, or other. Main contact, if nothing else, you have no other contacts associated with client or matter, your main contact will always end up on your invoice. Okay, so let's say we have Jack Ham, and he's at Jack Ham at newclient.com, whatever it might be, and his address is 12345 Lake Street, and he's in Minneapolis and Minnesota and 55401, whatever it might be. Okay. So now you have this new contact that you created, and by default, they're associated with the client, and you'll know that by clicking on associations here. Okay, and you can see they're associated with this new client, not any of the matters, but the new client. Okay. Now, say that it's a bigger client or even just a small client, and that person doesn't want to be or shouldn't be the one who receives the invoice. The invoice needs to be sent to their accounts department. They have an accounts receivable email address, and that's where they want stuff sent. So in that situation, you would use the optional invoice choice for that contact. So again, you'd go under contacts here, and you want to make a new contact, and the name of the AR person, let's say it's Rocky Blyer. Okay, and they are at accounts receivable at newclient.com. Okay, and you could do the address here again if you'd like, whatever. And then you want to hit just save. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. TimeSolv is good sometimes. I forgot to change the contact type, and you can only have one main contact type per client and per matter. So it's saying, nope, you already have one main. Pick again. And this is where, because they're the accounts receivable person, you choose optional invoice and you hit save. Now, whenever you have optional invoice as the contact type at the client or matter level, that person is the one who will be listed on the invoice. And to show that, let's go over and create a quick draft invoice for our new client. So I'm going to quick do one for just a new client, time and expenses. Let's download it real quick. See, there's Rocky Blyer in the name, new client. I don't have the address. I didn't put in an address for Rocky Blyer, so that's why he's not listed, but he was listed as the optional invoice, so he's on this invoice. And if we were to take him off, it would then go to, for at this client level, if we took that contact and we, deleted him or clicked on associations and unchecked the box, then let's do that. Actually, let me do that right now. I'm going to uncheck, and Rocky Blyer now is no longer associated with my new client. Jack Ham is the main contact here. So now when I go over and create a draft invoice for my new client, let's just click on this and have it just do the preview. Now you can see Jack Ham is listed on the invoice. Okay, so when you choose optional invoice, that is who's going to be getting the invoice. So how does that affect at the matter level? What happens if you have a different contact at the matter level? Let me explain a little bit about how the hierarchy of TimeSolv. When you create a new draft invoice for time entries on a particular matter, TimeSolv is the draft itself is first going to look at the matter level and say, are there any contacts here at the matter level, either main or optional invoice? If the answer is no, there's nobody associated at the matter level as a contact. It will then move up to the client level, and it'll look and say, well, on the contact here, is there one with an optional invoice? No, Rocky Blyer got disassociated. There is for Jack Ham. Jack Ham gets placed on the invoice, as you just saw. Okay, so you can at the matter level, if you have a different contact, assign them as the main contact. So let's go back to this matter, this one particular matter, new matter, and let's have Rocky Blyer be associated with this particular matter. And this will actually be my other lesson on how you assign an existing contact to a client or a matter. It doesn't matter if we're at the client level or the matter level. Rocky Blyer already exists in the system, right? We just created him a few minutes ago. Right here by default, when you come to this screen, it's showing you all associated contacts. Well, nobody's associated with this matter yet. So click on the drop down and show me all my contacts. You might have a much longer list than this, obviously. And I know specifically I want to find Rocky Blyer. Just type the first name even, and there he is, Rocky Blyer. Okay, then you could go over here to associations. Click on it, and again, it's going to bring up all of your matters and all of your clients. If hey, look, just show me new client. I'll just type new. So it's showing me all the clients and all the matters for when I type new. I want to associate Rocky Blyer as the main contact only for this matter, new matter, only for this one, for nothing else. And it's main. At this point, it doesn't matter if you do main or optional invoice at that matter level, because by default, whoever is associated at the matter level is going to be placed on the invoice. So let's take a look at my time entry screen. I think, yeah, these are both the new matter. So now Rocky Blyer should be back now placed on our invoice. I'm going to void out that old one that I had, start fresh. And I got my new client, I hit create, I go to look at it, and let's hope Rocky Blyer is associated. Generating the preview. There we go, there's Rocky Blyer, okay? If you need to change some of this stuff around after you've created your draft invoice, again, remember, you can do most editing things once you've created a draft right here by clicking on the dollar amount of the draft. I've gone over this before, but it's always a good reminder. Click on that, and you can go to addresses here, and it's showing, it's not going to change whether it's assigned to, the other main contact at the client level, but you can at least do some editing of the information here if you need to, okay? And you can actually save that, any updates you do here, like say, oh, I forgot to put in the address. So get my password manager. 12345 Lake Street, and he's Minneapolis. I'll spell the name of where I live clearly, Minnesota. I can say, hey, save this to the matter level, okay? And then I can just hit, the total save here, and it will be changed here. Hit save, and when we go back to, if we look at our invoice again, it should change it, and it'll show his address here on the invoice. Oop, did I not hit download? Thought I did. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. Patience, Scott. Patience. And there's the address now that I just typed in. And if you go back then to the contact at the matter level, you'll notice, the address is there in there now. 100% sure, to be perfectly honest. This is the one without the address. So looks like it essentially created 2 new contacts because we updated the address. So that's good to know. Okay, so that's important to note now how you, first of all, create new contacts, associate them at the client level as the main contact. If you have a different person within for your client who needs to receive the invoice, always choose optional invoice as the contact type. And then if you need to have a different contact for each one of your matters, you can certainly do that. If they don't, if they're a different person who are handling the matter level, you want them associated with the matter only, but they shouldn't receive the invoice either. What you could do here is when you edit them, just make them, where am I at here? I was going to say you can make them, oh, it's not showing the optional, the type of, oh, I know why. Okay, let me go back to the matters. Contacts. Need to go to just associated. Okay, now it'll show us we can edit the type because I showed all associated, and you can see here I can change this to just other. Let's say you have a couple of contacts. It appears to be a duplicate. Yep, that's fine. You saw that. So that's the other thing. The other 2 methods or types of contacts is other and related party. Other is just that. It's not anybody that is going to end up on an invoice, but you just want to have them in the system. And then related party, as you can guess, goes back to when you do conflict searches. If you wanted to say this is a related party, they will come up when you do a conflict search. We do have a whole separate section on related parties that's a little different. The related parties don't need to be, you can put a lot more information about related parties. If you have a contact that you want to just associate as a related party, it's a quick and dirty way of doing that. But we kind of recommend doing it at the, if you know it's going to be quick and dirty, do it here. And if you know it's related parties that might be used quite often, like judges and bailiffs and other things like that, or opposing counsel, do that at the related party level. Okay. Okay, so let's move along. I know there's a couple questions that have come in. I'll be sure to get to them when we finish up here. But I do want to make sure, as we're running up against the clock, we've got about 15 minutes left. It's 12:45. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let's talk about document automation, the new feature I was talking about that we implemented back in late spring. Go ahead and create a document template because there's a couple parts to all of this. You can create a document template first and upload it into TimeSolv, okay? And then you actually create the document itself with the merge fields that you inserted into the template. So what does that all mean? Well, let me show you. So there's a new, if you aren't aware of, we have a document management system that has been in place now, again, since the spring, where you could choose to manage documents for your firm using TimeSolv's, our own internal storage system. If you are using Dropbox, which a lot of firms do, you can sync with Dropbox, or you can sync with NetDocuments. Whether you use any one of those 3, the document template feature will still work the same. So what you want to first do is you're first going to create your document template, and you're going to insert merge fields into that document. What does that mean exactly? So you go under Documents and Settings. Then you want to go over here and you want to do merge fields. Okay, that merge fields tab. And then you will see these are all the different merge fields we have available within TimeSolv. And I think last time I counted, it's like 45, 46 different merge fields. Things, information about the client, about everything about, a lot of things, information about your matter, the user, the person who's actually logged in right now, and then some date information as well. And you can then even choose the particular, client and matter, let's say, and it'll show you what those fields would look like, that would be inserted into whatever document you might want, okay? So now we need to actually create the template. So you want to start with a Word document, and I have and this is like a welcome letter. As you can see, I have created, I've inserted, I'm going to kind of sneak this, well, actually, no, I'll do this. I'll kind of minimize this down so we can see these both side by side. I've taken the information that I want here, these field names, and I've inserted them in this letter that will become merge fields. You'll merge all this information into this document. And I grab these merge fields one of two ways. The old-fashioned way, you can just highlight, let's say, client name and hit copy, or you can come over here and click on these two documents, and that'll copy it as well. And then you come over here and just do Control-V for paste. If you like doing it, you can also right-click, and there's paste options there. You can do it that way too. Okay, so build out your document template. In this case, I'm putting the current date, month, or the month, day, and year, the client name, dear client's first name, and so on. And I'm putting even within the document itself. Okay, so once we have that template the way we want it, you need to upload it into TimeSolv. So you go about doing that here under the Templates tab. Click on the Templates tab, come over here to New Template, and you can upload as many as you'd like. You want to choose the file. You need to navigate out to wherever you are keeping that file. Okay, I have welcome letter template. By default, it's going to name the template whatever the name of the document is, which is fine. You can apply tags if you use the tagging system that we have for documents within our own storage system, and whether it's going to be active. And then you hit Save. Okay, and so our template is there, and you can upload several different templates you might use for common files that you have to create for clients. Now, when it comes to actually generating a specific letter with all those merge fields inserted, you could do it one of two ways. I'm going to show you the way that I think is probably easiest and where you'll normally would do it. You go under Clients and Matters. For that particular matter, say it's Samsung here, you go under Documents here, this Document tab. Okay, and I already have one letter here, this client intake Best Buy. Let's do another one. So we're going to create a new document. Let me back up, that was a little fast. Remember, you click over here where it says New Document, okay? Then we're going to choose, is it going to go to Net Documents, which is what I have it hooked up to, or my own, or TimeSolv's own internal. If you have Net, you would see that tab as well. But importantly, I'm not uploading a file yet. I'm creating a document. I want to create it from my template. If you had more than one template, you would have a pull down to choose the template that you want. In this case, I only have one. I want it to be a Word document. You can also choose to have it as a PDF. And we're going to call this Webinar Welcome Letter. Okay, we hit Save. And it's just created this document now. So let's preview it by clicking on that little icon. And you can see now that all of the information in those merge fields now makes a unique document for this specific matter and specific client. Okay, so it's a nice way. And the date here that I inserted, the lead attorney is Tony Hill, that was inserted, the name of the client name, and so on. So an easy way, if you do a lot of documents like this, create the template once. That might take a little time to build the template exactly how you want it, but once you have it and uploaded it and you need to create a document, then boom, it's there. Very easy. You can always then just download it, open it up, or send it as an email, whatever it might be. Print it, whatever you end up doing with it, okay? And there it is, okay? So that's how you would create, using our document automation, how you would create documents and files that have a lot of common information. Like I said, there's 46 different merge fields that you can put in the documents, okay? Okay, let me get to some questions. I know we've already had a few that have come in, so I'm going to roll back here and take a look. If you close the TimeSync widget before syncing, will it alert you that you have entries that have not been synced? No, it's not going to alert you of that. It'll close, and it saves the information. It's there, but the TimeSync tool is not going to give you an alert that you need, a sync has not occurred. That's something that you kind of need to do when you know you're either back on the internet or do at the end of the day or whatever it might be. Okay, good question. Okay, another question. Contacts at the client level format setup for corporate versus individual clients and single individual versus spouses. I guess I'm not 100% sure what the question is. Maybe, if you want to send an email directly to support@timesolv.com, you could. I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that. I'm not exactly sure what is being asked. So you may want to send that to support, a little more details about what you're asking as far as contact setup. Okay, so another question, sort of important question. I want the AR person to get my invoice and the main contact who signed the engagement agreement and ultimately has the approval authority to get it as well. The client needs to be on the invoice, but the AR, optional invoice recipient, should get it. Can TimeSolv email to both parties? AR should not be the addressee on the invoice. Okay, good question. So the way I would go about solving this is, no, it's not going to send an invoice to automatically via email to both of them. It's only going to send it to whoever is set up as listed on the invoice itself. So if you want that to be the main person, you can certainly, what I would do in that scenario is when you have your drafts here, you can choose whether you want to both be emailed and send to printer. By send to printer, really all that does is it creates a PDF, as you saw when I did a download. So what I would do is you still set it up as the main contact. It's the person that you need to send the email. They're going to get the email automatically. They're not the AR person, but AR needs it. Okay, so what you do then is when you go ahead and send the invoice, it'll send the email automatically to your main contact. I would have the AR person just listed as other. Don't list them as optional invoice. When you send the email, it's also going to download a PDF version of that invoice. That PDF version, I would then just save it to a separate folder somewhere, send an email then to the AR person, and make an attachment. I know it's a little extra step of work, but that's the way you could get the invoice to both parties when you only need one party listed on the invoice itself. So don't make that AR person as optional or as optional invoice. Make them listed as other, as the contact type. Therefore, they won't override the main contact, who is actually going to be getting the invoice automatically with the email. You have to then email the invoice manually, if you will, to the AR person. So I hope that makes sense and answers the question. Okay, one other question that came in. Can you put the additional email under invoice settings, additional email? Oh, you know what? I think you're right. I've never actually tested this. But you know what? I bet you're right. If you may have noticed, when you click on the dollar amount here, Eva, that was a really good question. So if you go you click on the invoice, you go under addresses, go under edit address, and notice there's additional email addresses. You could test, having it sent, whether it actually sends the invoice to that additional email address. I'm assuming it's going to. I haven't tested it myself, so that's a good place to start. So kind of maybe forget everything I just said, and you could click on, again, let's show how we got there. We're on the invoice. Okay, we're going to click on it. We're going to go to addresses. We're going to edit the address, and then we're going to add an additional email. This would be where you'd add that ar@whatever.com. Okay. So let's see if that will work. We could try that out. Like I said, I haven't actually done that myself. Oh, Eva, you're the best. It does work. She uses it all the time. Go in the matter itself, then to invoice settings tab, then the additional email. Okay, so forevermore, so you don't have to do it every time you're creating an invoice. What you do is go to the matter itself. Let's just choose a matter. go under invoice settings, and this is where you could put the additional email. Perfect. Thank you for that. You know, you guys are the ones using this every day, not necessarily me, so that's good to know. So that does answer the question. Go under the invoice settings, put in the additional email that you would need to send it to, like that AR person. You probably could do that at the client level too, I'm assuming, and that should work as well. So go up to the client level, go to invoice settings, put in the additional email, and it'll send an invoice to that additional email, but it'll still show your main contact as they'll be listed on the invoice itself. Okay, good question, and thank you, Eva, for helping out. Okay, can you set a global rate for a flat fee for one client? Can you set a flat fee as a global rate? No, not really, because the global rates are still going to calculate. It's based on time entries, that you create at the hourly rate. So it's still going to be talking about hourly rates. If you need to do a flat fee for a particular client, that's kind of a whole different thing. There's a couple different ways that you can do that within TimeSolv. You can either create a matter plan, a budget, and create a flat fee that you're going to send out every month perhaps, and it could generate the invoice automatically every month. Or you could just simply go, the quick and dirty way is for your particular client and matter. This has a plan tab. Let me find one that doesn't. Let's find that new client. Just quick and dirty, click and you're going to make a time entry, enter fixed amount. That's not satisfactory if you know you're going to be doing it a lot. I would suggest, well, let's see, Eva's helping us out again. Maybe I should bring her in next time. I know she's been using TimeSolv for a long time. We have a global rate that is labeled flat fee contingency. Oh, and the rate is set at 0. Oh, okay. So yeah, you could do it that way then. And then you could you could manually enter the flat fee. So there's a couple different ways that you could, if you're going to be doing a flat rate all the time. If you still want to track hours, you can do that. I would suggest, again, if you could call into our support line, send an email to support@timesolv.com, where we can actually schedule a support session that would be similar to this, where you could, and every tip of the week I send out, there's a button to schedule a support session with one of our support people, and they could walk you through the flat fee stuff. I don't want to get too far down that wormhole because we are running up against the hour, and that's kind of a different topic than covering the global rates. But yes, there are, I think, some ways around that to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Usually, in TimeSolv, what I've found in the time I've been here, we have enough flexibility where there may not be an obvious way to solve a problem, but we have some workarounds that can usually help you achieve the things that you need to achieve in most cases. So, okay, we have run up against, again, it's the top of the hour here. That hour went by fast. I hope everyone got some useful information here about how to set up your global rates and apply it to a client and matter, how to use the TimeSync tool. Great tool, should be using it if you're not, I think. How to create and assign contacts to a client and a matter, and which ones will actually receive the invoices. And then the fourth thing, the document automation. So I thank you all for joining me. I will send out, like I said, an email probably tomorrow with a link to the recording of this if you want to go back and review some things. If you have any other questions, again, you always can email us at support@timesolv.com or call 1-800, let me get back to that, sorry about that. Call 1-800-715-1284. Okay, that's our support line. So support@timesolv.com, 1-800-715-1284. We always want to answer all your questions, help you get the most out of TimeSolv. It's always free. We'll take as much time as we need to make sure that you get what you need to be more efficient and build better. So thank you, everybody, for joining me, and I hope you have a great afternoon. We will talk to you a month from today, November 1st on a Wednesday. Have a great month, everybody.